Hey everybody, Matt here. Thanks for stopping by. In today's video, we're going to continue to look at SketchUp Free. Well, welcome back. This is part 7 of my video series on SketchUp Free. If you're new to SketchUp or new to 3D modeling, I invite you to go look at the previous parts to this video series. I'll leave links in the video description. At the end of part 6, I left you looking at the bottom portion of the flip-top table design that I'm working on. So what we want to do is continue exploring this model so I can talk about how I actually got it into the condition that you're looking at here, and how I actually use this model to decide what to do next. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is show you is I want to hide these blocks. And again, if you're not familiar with hiding and unhiding, I invite you to take a look at the previous videos. I want to move this piece into position using the move tool. Because ultimately what I want to do is rotate the tabletop and see if anything on the table hits either this stringer or this stringer. So let me first explain what's actually on the table. So by clicking on any of these boxes right here, you can see that this whole group got highlighted. It does represent everything that's on the table. So I'm going to slide this out so we can slide this out so I can take a closer look at it and show you what I mean. Okay, so in doing the move, one of the things I want to call your attention to is you see that black or dark dashed line there? That's indicating that I've slid those parts off axis, this group off axis. And when I slide it back on axis, you see the black dash line turns green, and a little tooltip comes up, says on green axis. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. When I slide sub-assemblies apart, I like to keep them on axis, on either the green, the red, or the blue axis. It just makes it easier to keep things lined up and to move things back into position when I'm done. A left mouse click, and so now that group is into position. So what this group represents, this of course is the tabletop. This is the axle that the whole tabletop will rotate around. This big tan box right here represents a router table that I intend to mount on this surface of the table. The tan box represents the router table and the space that it takes up all the way up to this edge right here, which represents the work surface for the router table. The white box represents the volume of space above the work surface for where the fence on the router table goes and the guard for the router bit and so on. So all of those items take up space, and I want to make sure that as I rotate the table around, it won't collide with anything, any part of the table. So that's why I put this white box above the tan box, which represents the volume of the router table. On the bottom, we have this tan box. The tool that this box represents is the Blade Runner. And if you've been following my channel from the very beginning, you'll know that that's how this channel started, was by making tool review videos about the Blade Runner. If you haven't seen those, I'll leave some links in the video description here so you can check those out. And the white box represents the amount of space above the work surface of the Blade Runner, which I need to account for. Now this gray box represents kind of like a spacer box. It's kind of a platform that mounts to the tabletop, and then the Blade Runner mounts to the spacer block. And the reason for that is I want the work surface of the Blade Runner to be at the same height as the work surface for the router table when I spin the whole thing around. And for me, the work surface of both of these tools needs to be about 44 inches off of the ground. So 44 inches above the ground is where I want these work surfaces to be. All right, so that's what these boxes are, and they sit right in the middle of each one of the tabletop surfaces, and then the whole thing is marked as a group, saved as a group. All right, so if I slide that back into position using the move tool, I have to wait because it's saving my project or my model. All right, so now it's saved. I want to click on this endpoint right here. If you've been watching the earlier videos, you probably realize that whenever I do a move, I tend to click on an endpoint or a corner so I can move the mating pieces into position very accurately. So that's the corner that it lines up with, left mouse click, and now it's in position. Okay, so that's a little bit about what's on the table. Now I want to show you another kind of cool feature. What I want to do is spin the table around and make sure that it doesn't hit anything. So once again, if I select the group that includes the table and the tools that are mounted to it and use the rotate tool, I'm going to indicate that the center of my axle is the center of rotation. And then I'm going to choose, let's say, the outside edge of my axle. And that allows me to move, to rotate it. So if I zoom out, pan over, I can move the whole thing around. So now if I put the router table back on top, orbit around, I can see an immediate problem. The immediate problem that I see is that the tools on the bottom are taking up as much width between the side pieces. So I'm going to need to increase the distance between the side pieces to provide enough space for those tools to rotate around without hitting anything. So I'm going to take that on as a second action item. For the time being, I want to see if I can move the edge of the tabletop with the tools mounted It doesn't look like it's going to hit. Keep rotating around 1 degree at a time. I think you can see that the edges are not hitting. So let me try and get the other side to come around. And I hope you can see I'm typing in different angles in the angle box to get this to spin around. So there's 180. Okay, let's go back to 180. We'll go 1 degree at a time. And once again, it doesn't look like anything is going to hit. So that's good news. Alright, so that's a little bit about how you can use the rotation tool to move a group around in your model so that you can check for any interference or collisions. So the next thing I'm going to need to do, saving my model again, next thing I'm going to need to do is add some more space between the sides here so there's enough room for these. This is the Blade Runner side, there's enough room for the Blade Runner side to rotate all the way around. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks again for watching.